On today's episode, we welcome Sonia Sharma, who is an Ayurvedic practitioner from Sonia Wellness Coaching. She's also a passionate coach, student, and teacher on all topics relating wellness. And that was this episode today. We really got into Ayurvedic or Ayurveda. She pronounces it a very specific way. It's hard for me to pronounce it, but it was just very insightful and kind of like very bringing it back to the basics of how you can improve your overall wellness or overall health and well-being by looking at certain things that we're not going to disclose in the intro because we want you to listen to the episode, obviously. But it was just a very nice, calming episode and very insightful. I learned a lot about Ayurveda, and I just probably will have to book a consult with her to understand my um, body type, how I can eat better, how I can improve my ways in my life to sleep better, et cetera, et cetera. It was just like really such a nice episode.
Mhm. And I 100% agree with everything you just said. It's so interesting that we have all of these conversations regularly with different
Yeah.
experts. And what a lot of it just boils down to when you boil it out and you're left with what is left, it's it's all linked to what we put in our bodies, basically. And
Pretty
in
much.
our it's what we put in our bodies and how we digest our foods, emotions, life, everything. And she just has a really nice way to explain it in very simple terms, which hopefully will encourage people listening to this episode today to take it upon themselves to book a consultation with her because, first of all, she gives consultations for free. And
Mhm.
it will help you to understand how to live a healthier, more balanced, fulfilled, joyous life. Ultimately, that's what it is. And it
Yeah.
starts with what we put in our body. And that's the common denominator to everything, I think. So we're really excited to have this conversation today with Sonia. Welcome to the podcast, Sonia.
We are really looking forward to this conversation today, Sonia. Welcome to the podcast because it's something that's a little bit different. I personally don't know a lot about it. It's Ayurvedic. I'm not sure exactly what it is, so I'm just so excited on today's episode. I'm going to learn so much, and I hope our listeners are going to feel the exact same way. Before we get started, why don't you give us a little bit of a background story, how you became an Ayurvedic wellness practitioner, and then we can kind of go in deep with the actual Ayurvedic itself. So give it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Natasha and Beata, for inviting me to this podcast. It's great to be here. So, how did I get into Ayurveda? Very good question. Sometimes I even think about how did I actually get into it? I would say I was born in India, raised in India for the first 12 years of my life. And I was exposed to all the different tools in Ayurveda that I was watching my parents, my grandparents do. For example, my grandmother, rubbing a little bit of oil on the soles of her feet before she went to bed. Or, my grandfather getting up early in the morning before the sun even came up and doing his mantras and little rituals, doing his cold shower. Um, the use of spices, in daily cuisine. So I was exposed to it without actually hearing the word Ayurveda. Can you believe it? Because nobody really talks about the word Ayurveda or even yoga for that matter. People are just immersed into it in the daily
Mm.
lifestyles from one generation to another. So I would say it was my grandparents and my parents who exposed me through Ayurveda and yoga at a young age. We moved to Canada when I was 12 years old, and my dad was, he wanted to make sure that we maintained this rich history. So he was really exposing us to different yogis, different swamis who are coming to Toronto regularly. So I was exposed to all that as well. Was I always fond of doing all that? Not really as a teenager, because I really had so many other interests. But, it was
Mhm.
there.
Of
The
course.
seeds were being sown. And I would say I formally started taking it when I started getting to challenges in my life. It was about the age between 35 and 40. I was going through a marriage which was not going well at all. I was in the marriage more than 10 years, had two wonderful children, but I felt like managing my emotions was very hard for me. And that was obviously affecting my relationship with my spouse at that time and balancing work, family, everything, children. And I started doing yoga, getting back to my roots, which I had forgotten. And that started helping me. And
Mhm.
one thing led to the other. I did my yoga teacher training and loved it because the immense changes that started happening to my mind, the calming effect. And then I decided to become a yoga teacher. 'Cause that was my formal training in Ottawa as a yoga teacher. And I started doing retreats right after. There was an experienced yoga teacher that noticed that I love to cook as well. And she asked me if I wanted to pair up with her and do a women's retreat. And wow, that just took off because every retreat was sold out. The women were just enjoying themselves, being immersed for the weekend with the special food that I was preparing, very sattvic, very light meals that felt good for them. And they started asking me questions. What spices were you using? And oh, I felt so good. I could sleep better today. So then I decided to take this a step further. I did my Ayurveda chef training in Hawaii with an American lady, Myra Lewin, amazing teacher. And I would say that was my formal training, but my informal training had already started when I was young. So that was really the preparation in understanding these techniques that I was studying in a formal way. It was all just coming back and, putting the dots together. So it became so easy for me to just grasp it, apply it for myself and for my clients. So that's
Mhm.
in a nutshell.
Oh, I love that. And what I love so much, I know a little bit about you, Sonia, that you had a completely different career in the past, working for the federal government of Canada, right? So, like, you went
Absolutely.
from that to this. So, I just always
It's a
find
big switch.
it's a big switch. I find it so interesting because I love it when people do that in their lives. They kind of reinvent themselves. The life that they're living isn't necessarily aligning with their values and passion and everything. And then they just, take a leap of faith and make a very brave and bold move to switch over to something entirely new, which is completely, completely different than what you were doing before, right?
I would like to add something to that because, yeah, so my background is accounting,
That's
and
so
that's
funny.
what I was doing in the federal government. But the strange thing is, I retired there in November 2023. Um, But in 2016, when I had just graduated as a yoga teacher, I wanted to share this with my colleagues who had asked me, "Oh, so what did you learn as a yoga teacher?" And I was
Yeah.
so fascinated. I was sharing my experiences with them and saying how my mind had become calmer. And they said, "Well, Sonia, why don't we just get into the boardroom and maybe you could teach us some of these techniques?" And that was in 2016 when I started doing that. And I had maybe a couple of people who came to the boardroom, just close colleagues. And they said, "Why don't we send it out to our whole floor that you're doing this?" And one thing led to the other. And before I knew it, our boardroom became too small. We had like 20, 25 people showing up in the boardroom, which was getting too small. And of course, senior management was noticing all this and the benefits that they were hearing from their own employees, how great their employees were feeling. I had examples of, my colleagues saying, "Oh, I had a headache before I came in and it was just gone. I just feel so relaxed, Sonia." Or, I had a little conflict with my manager. So when I was watching all this, I thought, wow, people really need this. And then
Powerful.
I started getting invitations to doing town halls and presentations, and it just took off. And by the time I ended my career, I was really doing it full time in the federal public
I find
service.
that so interesting too, because it just tells you that people need stuff like this in their lives
Yeah.
and it's people I think in just general are struggling with a
Mhm.
lot of things for a lot of different reasons. I don't even want to speculate on that, but I just every time I have these types of conversations, what I realize is that in general people are struggling and they're looking for help somehow.
Yeah, and it's a simple changes. It was a simple changes. I'll give you an example. In my wellness sessions in the workplace, I used to talk about switching to drinking more warm water rather than cold water.
Hmm.
And I had one of my colleagues who approached me. She says, "Sonia, I actually noticed that my digestion got better How
Mhm.
did that happen? It was
I
just one little
swear.
change. I stopped drinking ice water.
I
Yeah.
swear, I have arguments with my boyfriend about this every single day. Ice water is not good. Like
Well,
I'm convinced that it's not good. And I had the argument and I never actually like I heard it once before why it wasn't good and I don't have a strong enough argument. So like why is it better that the body needs like te room temperature water versus ice so that I can go back to him this afternoon, tonight, and complete
I
my
started
argument
to
and win it?
say, win the
I
argument,
need to,
Nicole.
yeah, I
Absolutely.
need it.
I'm going to share this with you. So
Please.
Ayurveda is the science of life. Life. This is nature. These are principles that are in nature before the scientists even discovered. Now, modern science is now validating most of the Ayurvedic principles, which is amazing because I love when modern science and ancient science start blending together. So when we
Absolutely.
talk about cold and hot, very different qualities. The
Mm,
cold quality, and by the way, I'm just going to tell you that in Ayurveda, nothing is good or bad. Nothing is good or
right.
bad. We're just looking at how is the body aligning to what's happening around us? How is it aligning to what's happening in our gut? So when we take a glass of ice cold water, it goes into our body. First of all, our tongue is very warm. Our internal body temperature is much warmer than the ice cold. So right away, what happens is the body thinks it's a shock that's
It's
happening. So
constricting.
everything just contracts, including everything in the respiratory tract, including everything in the digestive tract. And it doesn't like it. It's like a shock. So literally the body is trying to think that something drastic has just happened and is trying to help you survive. So what does it do? It goes
Stressing.
into this mode of warming up your body. So what does it do? It has to use up energy for that.
Mm.
Anything that has to bring up the temperature makes you lose your energy. And what happens is our digestive fire becomes weak in that process. Because when we do this over and over again, the digestive fire, which is like this little stove that has to go on, self-starter, ignition, it starts getting weaker and weaker because it says, ah, I'm doing this every time. And guess what? I can't keep doing this all the time, the shock that's happening. So that is an Ayurvedic perspective.
It just makes
Okay.
logical sense. It makes so much sense to me.
Yeah. These are all
Yeah.
principles of nature.
Yeah. And I have to say that I start my day every morning before coffee, before if I do matcha or whatever it is, I start my day every morning with warm water, a big, huge glass of warm water.
Awesome.
And I'm having one now. I'm having
Me
one
too.
now. So like
I've
I'm
got
into
mine
it.
too.
I love it. I actually feel that I want to drink water more often because it's warm, because it feels like a tea. It's soothing to me. It
Absolutely.
feels
And you know
soothing.
what? As you're doing this, you're also removing toxins from the body
Yeah,
on a regular basis.
I know. I'm so not toxic. I love it.
Oh, well,
That's a different
well,
easy daughter, easy daughter.
let's bring that back. Let's bring that back a little bit. No, but I actually wanted to, I heard this somewhere where, and specific to women, like I don't remember if it was even on this podcast, but somebody had said that like specifically women bodies require warmer foods and warmer liquids. And like I'm not sure if you know why, but like why is it that like soups are really good for us and like just like and I think because of our body and everything internally, like we require warmer things.
Can I
Yeah.
add to that before you answer, Sonia? I've also recently heard like hot and cold therapies, like Wim Hof technique and all that is not ideal for women. So I
Yeah.
want to, I don't know if that's linked.
Yeah, that is all linked. So this is a very good question. So in Ayurveda, like I mentioned, there is no good or bad, right? What is a person going through? What is their health like? What is their imbalances like? So depending on that, the body is going to react accordingly. For example, if someone who is, let's say, close to 60 years old, a very fragile body, has been diagnosed with osteoporosis, do I suggest to them that they take ice cold showers? No, not at all. Not at all, because it is going to make the body even more fragile. But someone who has a lot of heat in their body, who has a very good digestive fire, they're able to digest things really well, not just food, but experiences as well. They have a really strong resilience to anything that comes through in their life. They'll do okay with a cold dip. Yeah,
Okay.
they will be completely okay with that because their body is very resilient to all that. And their body has a lot of internal heat. They have a good balanced Agni. We say that but Agni in Ayurveda, which is your digestive fire. And a lot of people think that's only relating to food. In Ayurveda, your Agni relates to everything. Your Agni, your digestive fire, is not just digesting your food, it's also digesting your experiences. Whatever you're
Emotions.
seeing, whatever you're hearing, your body has to process that. So,
It's so true. It's so, so true.
oh yeah, we
We're
don't realize
digesting every single second of every single day, everything.
everything,
Yeah.
everything.
Wow.
And your body has to. So if your body doesn't have the ability to process, let's say it's something you hear on social media, something that just happened in the world, and it was like a shock to your body. That affects your digestive fire. It becomes weak because it
Yeah.
has to process it. How is it going to process that? So, this is why I do a lot of gut work with people because your gut, your digestive health is the core in Ayurveda. And then after that, we start working with the other elements. We have the
Uh-huh.
five elements, we start working with that. But
Uh-huh.
if their Agni is not balanced, it's very hard to help them come back to balance.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. Did I answer your question?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But it just makes me have so many other questions in my head around it. So the first thing that I learned today is really how to pronounce it. So our Ayurveda.
Ayurveda. So
Okay.
Ayur means life,
Yeah.
life, Ayur. And Veda, you must have heard about Veda. Vedic wisdom means knowledge and wisdom. So it's basically the knowledge of life. It is really vast, very vast. And in Ayurveda, it is believed that everything in the universe is related to the five essential elements. Everything is made up of those five essential elements. What are those five elements? We have ether or space, right? We need space. If we didn't have space, nothing would exist. We need
Uh-huh.
space between people. We need space between two trees. Imagine if two trees are stuck together, they just wouldn't be able to survive. So,
Uh-huh.
space is the most vast element, the most calmest element, right? There's space. Then we have air. Air cannot move if it doesn't have space. So air is very important. Then we have fire, right? Like the sun outside. The sun
Uh-huh.
is that fire that
Heat.
metabolizes everything, all plants, the photosynthesis. And
Uh-huh.
internally, we also have acids in our body, which represent the fire, the hydrochloric acid. Our foods, how are they broken down? It's the fire element. Then we also have water. You wouldn't be able to survive without water. So our saliva, the blood running through our body, that is the water element. And then we have the earth element, which is basically the bones, the structure, right? In our body, it's the structure. We need that because imagine when the bones start breaking down, it becomes very difficult to be able to even hold yourself up,
Uh-huh.
right? So bones, that's the earth element. And outside of us, it's Mother Earth. She is the one who's sustaining us. So those five elements are found outside of our body and they're found within our body. They're found in everything. They're found in seasons, right?
Yeah.
Summer season, lots of heat, lots of fire happening. Winter season, lots of snow, right? This is the cold season. And that is called the Vata season because the Vata season is made up of the air and the ether element. So before I get into the doshas, I wanted to talk to you about those five elements and how they're manifested in every tree, every vegetable out there. And this is how Ayurveda decides how something is aligned to us or not. So each one of us, Beata, you have a different unique constitution versus Natasha, right?
Uh-huh.
So each one of us will have those five elements in different proportions in our body. So each one of us is unique as
Uh-huh.
well. So accordingly, with our unique constitution, do we really understand what types of foods are going to align to us?
Uh-huh.
Do we understand what types of emotions really get us agitated much more quickly? What types of exercise will suit our body? So it's a knowledge about life, how to align our body to everything that's around us, because everything is rooted in those 5 elements.
So interesting. And now, how do we find out about where we are, who we are in that?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So the beginning that I start with any client is filling out 3 questionnaires. I ask them to fill out a Prakriti questionnaire. So in Sanskrit, Prakriti means your true nature, right? Your Prakriti, what is your true nature when you are the most healthy? How do you show up? How does it manifest in your body, in your true nature? So I ask them to fill that out. Then they fill out a Vikriti. Vikriti is imbalances that are happening in the body. So what happens when you go off balance? Do you find it difficult to manage your emotions, or does it
Mm.
affect your elimination? Do you get more diarrhea? Do you get constipated? This shows up in Vikriti. And then the last one I asked them to fill out is something called the Ojas and Ama. Ojas is the nectar that is created with good digestion. It's the vitality of life, and Ama is the opposite. It's the toxins that pull you down. So I asked them to fill out those 3 charts. Those are a starting point. And once they fill it out, I sit down and have a full discussion with them in an initial consultation, which is usually about 90 minutes to 2 hours, asking them more questions, because how they see themselves can be different than how an Ayurvedic doctor sees them, right? So
Uh-huh.
we usually have our own biases as well,
Uh-huh.
and asking them more questions about their habits and so forth. After I ask them to do the questionnaires, understanding how much toxins are in the body, what is the protocol that I want to do with this person? Is it that they don't get enough sleep? Is it that their diet needs to be looked into? It could be a combination of all of them, but I usually like to do a quick hit first. There's usually something that just is glaring out at me and
Uh-huh.
that I know they need to work on very quickly. And usually that's how it begins. And usually I like to do a 3-month consultation for anyone to see any benefit for them and me, both. For each one of us, you need to have a time period that you want to work on so both of us can see the benefit of the transition, the changes that we're making.
I am loving Jan Marini's Luminate Eye Gel. I've been using it for months, and it's my favorite product for tackling dark circles, puffiness, and crepiness. It's packed with retinol power, but gentle enough for everyone. And if you're dealing with milia, its gentle formula hydrates without being too rich. You apply it under eyes only and never on the lids. And remember, as with most retinols, there's an acclimation period. So start slowly, like 2 to 3 nights per week, and then gradually increase to every night. I promise you won't be disappointed. If you want to try this product, go to beskinenvy.ca. That's beskinenvie.ca and use code SKINTALKS to get 10% off your first order. So you said that, Natasha, myself are different, let's say, for example. So your entire analysis, basically based on these 3 different questionnaires, will help you to determine what is the best lifestyle.
Yes,
That includes everything from diet to exercise to sleep to nutrition, everything.
it includes everything, including,
That's
yeah,
best for her, for example, to be able to live the most balanced, healthy life, more or less.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And so I know I attended one of your seminars, which I really found very interesting, and it gave me a taste to why I wanted to bring you into this episode today, because I think that it's a very unique and interesting approach to living a healthy, balanced lifestyle. But you did, I remember, have basically there's 3 different body types. I remember that, and I remember that different body types, in order to manage a healthy weight and all of that kind of stuff when it comes to our bodies, had different ways to eat. So
Yes.
some people could eat nuts, but they should only eat it in the wintertime, whereas somebody else would only eat it in the summertime. So can you talk a little bit about that? I know a little bit more. I just don't want to say it because I want you to explain it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to share that. So the 5 elements that we had talked about, they are manifested in something called doshas. So Ayurveda uses a concept called doshas. Now, when I talk about these 5 elements, these are elements that are manifesting in your body in how you talk, how you behave, how you look, right? And Ayurveda has used these principles in nature to classify these 5 elements. So the ether and the air very light elements, right? They are known as vata body types. So anyone who generally is very slim, very thin, they find it hard to even gain weight, right? Those are the more vata dominant individuals. Then we have pitta individuals that are made up of the fire and the water element. And these people have a nice muscular structure. They are very focused, great leaders. They also don't have as much patience either compared to, let's say, a kapha person, which is the last body type. So the last body type is kapha person. They are mainly earth and water element. They tend to have a very muscular, large bodied structure, a lot of nice big bones. Think about Scandinavian culture, they've got tall physique, nice muscles, everything. Um, Very typical kapha. So these sorts of individuals, they very wonderful. A lot of earth element in them. So they tend to do things a little bit slower. They're not all fast, fast, fast compared to someone who's a vata, who wants to do everything very quickly. And, vata people may have, 100 projects going on at once, but may not be able to focus on any one of them. A pitta, for example, may have 10 projects, but they're totally focused, very organized in their projects, know exactly what they're doing, and they're actually very ambitious people. Pitta people, very ambitious people. While kaphas, they are also ambitious, but they like a more supportive role rather than being upfront and leading it. So pittas like to lead as well. So these are the differences in the doshas and how they manifest and how we behave, also in our ambition, in our emotions as well. So kapha people, for example, may get the tendency to have lethargy, also be prone to depression as well. While a vata person who's very light, because they're on the move so much and their mind is so busy, may have a tendency to get anxiety very quickly as well. So they may not be as focused. So there are ways how to balance these tendencies using foods, using meditation, using yoga exercises, using lifestyle changes. We can help them come back to balance. And when somebody really understands who they are, it becomes simpler to know what types of foods will align to them and what types of habits will create a more balance in their life.
Mm. I find it so interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And, this goes much deeper. Like, we can talk about vatas also in terms of their digestion as well. So
Uh-huh.
if you're a type of person who tends to get constipated more, right? Then you have a very vata type digestion. If your body tends to get inflammation, internal inflammation to a high degree where you tend to get diarrhea very quickly, or you have like too much redness happening on the skin everywhere, right?
Uh-huh.
A lot of pitta, too much heat happening in the body. So the gut, really, as I talked to you, the gut, the Agni is the core. How do we fix the gut so that we can manage all that heat in their body? Is it happening from their emotions? Is it happening from perhaps they're eating a lot of fermented foods, for example, right? It could be something as simple as that. For example, I'm going to give you, I had a client who came to me and said, Sonia, I tend to feel so congested early in the morning, and her prakriti, her original constitution was a pitta, right? And one of the first questions I asked her is, what are you having for breakfast? She said, well, I have a yogurt with some nice fruits in it. And I knew that she also had inflammation happening in the body because she had some colitis also happening. So as we talked, I said, okay, so the yogurt it's a fermented food. That's what yogurt is, right? That was increasing the fire in her body even more. So she needed something different in the mornings. So I suggested a very simple oatmeal recipe, a steel cut oatmeal with, some maple syrup, some spices in it to help digest it because she had weak digestion as well. And of course, oats. we know, right? How good oats can
Uh-huh.
be for the skin as well. That just reduced her inflammation as well. So it was just a simple switch.
And
She
she
stopped.
noticed it immediately?
Oh yeah, she noticed it immediately. Within a week, she says, Sonia, yeah, that I can't eat yogurt. That's what it is.
Okay,
That's why I
so
was feeling so congested.
understanding really if you're a vata, pitta, or kapha,
Yeah.
and then adjusting your lifestyle, food included, all exercise and everything into that can really ultimately change your life, give you more energy, make your skin clearer, like make you just more functioning better in your life, like at a higher level of vibration, kind of.
Exactly. So I'm going to go back to the definition of how health is defined in Ayurveda.
Okay.
Okay. So in Ayurveda, good health is not just the absence of disease. It's much more than that. So the modern science would say if there's an absence of disease, you're
You're
healthy.
healthy.
No, in Ayurveda, we say it's much more than that. What is your inspiration like? Are you an inspired person?
Yeah.
How does your skin look?
Yeah.
Do you have any skin issues happening? Skin is the first thing because, as you know, our
Largest organs.
skin is the largest organ. How does your skin look like? Is it glowing with vitality, or is it red, or is it dry? And if that's happening, there's something happening in the gut, and we need to address that. Okay, so skin
Yeah,
is
we
a
hear that
very,
so much now, Sonia. We hear so much the brain and the gut.
oh yeah.
Hmm.
One.
Very linked.
They're one.
So I want to share something about that. The gut-brain axis that modern science is now talking about
Yeah.
has been in Ayurveda for thousands of years.
Yeah. Yeah, we're
Thousands
just
of
waking
years
up.
we have been talking about this. And why is that? Because the gut is sending messages to the brain. In Ayurveda, we've been saying your every cell in your body is communicating to each other. We have colonies of cells in our body, and they are all talking to one another. It's like an army in there,
Yeah.
right? The colony
Mhm.
in the gut is talking to the colony in the brain. So I'm going to give you another example. I had a client who had sleep issues, and I asked her to start eating a more lighter dinner, for example. This is the gut brain connection. She wasn't sleeping that well. And she tried making khichdi, which is a very basic meal in Ayurveda, very balanced meal. She had a khichdi that night with she cut up some fresh vegetables in it. And she says, Sonia, I couldn't believe it. I slept so good. Something simple.
Yeah.
She had not made any changes except the khichdi, having a light dinner before she
Which is
went to
delicious,
bed.
by the way. I've had that before. It's
Yeah,
delicious.
isn't it
What is
amazing?
it exactly?
It's made up of basmati rice. Traditionally in Ayurveda, it's made up of basmati rice and yellow split mung beans. That's traditional, but there's many variations. You can
And
make it with
it has a
many grains.
beautiful flavor, and I ate it when I was in Bali a lot, Tashi.
Yeah, yeah.
I ate it all the time at the yoga barn. I couldn't wait to go and have it. It was just so delicious, and you can put vegetables in it as well.
Sort of
Really,
like
very
comfort
simple,
food vibes.
but
Actually,
simple, simple,
I
simple.
use the khichdi meal as part of the cleanse. So it's traditionally used for Ayurvedic cleanses as well because it is a very light meal to digest, and anything that is light for the gut helps increase the strength of your Agni because that's what you want. Most of us have a very low Agni, or some of us may have a very inflamed Agni where it's almost like a volcano happening in the body,
Yeah,
right? So we need to bring it back to balance. So it's this nice, beautiful flame that is lighting and it's going at a consistent pace. And that happens in the gut. And when that is balanced, the mind is balanced.
yeah.
If that's balanced, the mind is not balanced either.
Mhm.
They go together.
Yeah, I could tell you from my own personal experience this year in January, I made some decisions around my, taking care of my health differently. I won't get
Yeah.
into all the details of that, but I can say that I changed my diet and I noticed immediate changes in my mental clarity, how I felt every day, how I showed up in my life, how I digested information. the spikes, the highs and low triggers that you get from everyday life were less spiky, much more even. And I really believe it has a lot to do with what I was putting in my body, as well as
Absolutely.
other things, obviously, but it's a big, big component to feeling well is how we nourish ourselves. And I just think more and more in today's society, in the world that we live in today, I think that's the base, fundamental, most important thing that we really need to address, because we haven't been doing that for a long time in the North American way. There's processed foods and fast foods and these trends and diets that come out of nowhere that okay, do this or do that, and we're forgetting to bring it really just down to the basic
Yeah, the
basics.
basics.
And
Yeah.
it
And
makes the
that
biggest difference.
you brought up a very good point, Beata, because in Ayurveda, we talk about the concept of prana.
Yeah,
A lot of people have heard the word prana, but
yeah,
in relation to yoga. But prana, what does that mean? It means our life force. Prana is our life force. And guess what? When we start eating more fresh fruits, vegetables, we start incorporating that into our diets. Guess what they have? Prana.
yeah,
They have prana. And it's prana that is going to go inside your gut. And guess what? Our Agni loves fresh pranic foods. Our
Hmm.
Agni cannot, it doesn't comprehend processed foods. It doesn't even know where to begin. It doesn't know how to break them down. It's almost like when we put plastics over there out on Mother Earth. Does she know how to decompose plastics? Absolutely not. Our gut is a reflection of nature. Our gut recognizes natural materials that it can break down easily. So anything that is fresh, easier to break down, which means we keep our Agni strong and we increase our life force. So I'm giving you the explanation in the Ayurvedic terms
uh-huh,
why this supple is so important and why healthy eating
uh-huh.
fresh foods, cooking every day as well. This is another thing I want to talk to you about because I get some people who will cook for a week at a time. It's not a bad thing. I know people are very busy, but I had a client, I asked her to switch, and she was very busy. She said, Sonia, I can only cook once a week. I said, okay, that's fine. Why don't you try during your holidays, your vacation, to cook every day and then tell me how you feel? So she could do that during her vacation time. And she came back to me. She says, Sonia, I couldn't believe the change, the energy I had in my body because I was cooking every day.
Do you mean
So,
by like cooking a fresh meal every day, or like was she just
yeah.
doing like meal planning? She just cooked like once and then would meal plan, or is it just
No, she was cooking every day. She was getting on the stove and cooking every day. So I'll tell you why that technique works. Okay. It sounds so simple, and I know we all like to plan things, which is good, but it's again coming back to balance and understanding how is the strength of your Agni. So why does this work? Why does cooking every day work better than, doing the meal planning once a week? Well, because when you start doing the process of cooking, you're going to be cutting vegetables. Our mind, our gut, our pure intelligence, they start secreting enzymes right away. They know something is about to happen, something is going to be cooked. And then after we cut those vegetables, we put them in a pan, we put the oil, we put the different
Mm.
spices, the aromas start coming out. Our nose has all the intelligence, it can smell, it starts secreting more enzymes. So when we're cooking every day, guess what? We are releasing the important enzymes every day that don't happen when we are not cooking every day.
And these enzymes are important. Why?
These enzymes are very important. They are that fire that help metabolize the food. So
Digest,
yeah,
digestion also.
absolutely, they affect your whole digestion. I had another client who doesn't know anything about Ayurveda. She had lots of digestive issues, and we were just talking about gut health. And she said, Sonia, this makes so much sense because she said, I had so many digestive issues, and I was trying, buying different supplements and this and that. But I decided to just sit down and work with what foods are aligned to my body, which ones I don't react to. And I started cooking every day. And she said, my digestion got better. I said, yeah, absolutely. because all of a sudden your body was releasing a lot more digestive enzymes, and because your body was releasing those digestive enzymes, your Agni was becoming more balanced, which means your digestive issues were getting less and less.
I have been using the SkinCeuticals PTOX for a couple of weeks now, and I have to say I'm obsessed. This product is a needle-free anti-wrinkle peptide serum that visibly reduces 9 types of expression lines and reveals glass skin radiance. It's a great product to start using when you're not quite ready for injections, or like me, it's the perfect complementary product to use in conjunction with my Botox sessions to maximize wrinkle correction. I even have a couple of friends who have been using the product and have noticed change in their skin texture and any deep wrinkles they may have. You have to try it. Trust me on this. If you want to try the product, go to bskinenvy.ca. That's bskinenvie.ca and use code SkinTalks to get 10% off your next order.
I have a crazy question
Yeah.
because I'm thinking about all the things that you're saying here. So let's say, for example, somebody who is a really clean eater, all the things that you talked about before, fresh foods, blah, 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 whatever. And they are of healthy weight. Okay. But let's say they have like extra pouches here and there. Like
Yeah.
they just can't get rid of their little tummy, or they can't get rid of the excess, but they eat healthy, they exercise, they do everything. Could it be because they are just meal prepping and not doing that process every day? Of like, could we be holding on to things because we are not preparing our body to properly or effectively metabolize what we're putting into it because of the preparation process?
Yes. Yep. That is one factor.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The other factor is ama. So let me talk about the concept of ama and ojas in Ayurveda. So whenever we eat something, it will either produce ojas, which is nectar, life force for our body, or it will produce ama, which
The
is toxins in the
toxins.
body. So when you tell me that someone's got, these little love handles on the
Yeah.
side, right away I know that they've got ama in the colon area, which is why they have this. So no matter how healthy they're eating, it's going to be very hard to remove that ama until they do an internal detoxification. So in Ayurveda, cleansing is suggested. It's actually suggested to do it twice a year, if not at least once a year. I just finished doing a 30-day digestion program with my clients, and this was the core of it, helping people understand, if you want to lose weight, no matter where it is, it could be around your gut area, it could be, this
Arm.
area right here, could
Yeah.
be the thighs. And, they're doing all types of crunchies and, doing everything they can, and they just can't seem to lose that weight, is because the metabolism, the Agni, is not strong. So during those 30 days, they were eating a lot of khichdi, they were eating a lot of fresh food. So all these concepts that I'm sharing with you, which strengthen your digestion, they were the core of the program. And they were all supporting each other as they were doing this. So when you bring in all those different principles, and it's not a lot of principles, really, and you're not even exercising vigorously, believe it or not, you're not even exercising vigorously, your body starts removing that excess ama from the body. Why is that? Because all of a sudden the fire becomes brighter, the Agni inside of you, and it has the ability to draw out all the toxins, the ama that is stored in all these areas, which is very difficult to do even if you're doing a lot of exercise.
So interesting. So, just so I'm trying to like process all this information at the same time, because I see it, and we see it also in our clinic. People come in and they're like, I exercise, I do this and this, but I just need something to help me to get rid of. So it's a bigger conversation. What I wanted to ask you about the cleanse specifically is, you're not actually hungry. Like it's not a cleanse where you're removing everything from your diet. It's just the
No,
choice of foods that you eat for over a 30-day period are
Yeah.
specific to
Yes, it's mainly,
detoxify.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
You do get a list of foods. They're generally fresh foods that you're going to be eating, and I do recommend to my clients to eat to cook every day. I had some clients who were not cooking every day. They were cooking every 3 days, but they still saw benefits, believe it or not. They still lost their weight. So, even if they're not following the principles completely, they will still see the benefit of it. So, during this cleanse, they're going to be mainly eating fresh foods. They do bring in the yoga and meditation as well
Okay.
into it. There's specific detoxification exercises that I give to them also through this. They also do a consultation with me because I have to customize the cleanse for each person. So it's not a
Depending on their
generic.
dosha.
Yeah, I have to know their dosha type.
Yeah.
Accordingly, I can tell them what types of foods that they need to focus on during this cleanse. And that's different for every person.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it is very unique. And this is why, I would say some of the modern cleanses, which are good to some extent, like, I hear juice fasting, that can be good for, let's say, someone who's a pitta type, but not necessarily somebody who's a vata type, because their gut may actually get aggravated in the long run
Okay.
with a long-term juice fasting.
Mhm.
So again, it always goes back to what is your body type? What is your gut health like? And then we have to customize it accordingly.
Mm.
And this is where you need the help of an Ayurvedic practitioner to help you understand that. So what I'm doing, I'm also a teacher. I teach courses on Ayurveda. I like to empower my clients. I don't just tell them what to do. I want to empower them so that they want to learn more. So a lot of them will start reading books on this, which is great because that's what I want them to do. And I want them to learn more about their body type so that they can align and get into balance much more quickly,
Mhm.
even without my help.
Mhm. Mhm. So interesting. I just find it, I find it fascinating, and I find it, sad that we got away from that because it's really just the roots of everything. Like you said, in India, it's part of the society, right? It's not something that people label necessarily as this is the lifestyle that you're leading, but in North Americans and maybe probably the Western world, we've forgotten those things, and ultimately bringing it back to the basics is going to change everything in your life, your general health, how you feel about everything, and how you navigate through the world that you live in. It would be a lot easier, I think, for people if they understood this, and
Exactly.
applied it to their lives. Yeah,
Yeah, so
fascinating.
we have human beings are part of nature.
Mm-hmm.
We've forgotten that. So are the squirrels and all the other animals. The
Mm-hmm.
thing is, the animals, the birds, they're still aligned to nature. They watch when sunset happens. You notice that they have their routine. They will start settling down when the sun goes down. But human beings are still on the go.
Yeah.
Even after the sun sets down, they're still on their laptops. They're still doing a lot of screen time. So we've disconnected. We've really
Yeah, we're
disconnected.
disconnected. I would say that. I would say that.
And
And you can see it in everyday life, just by, if you drive on the highway, for example, you see the disconnection just by road rage and just all of the things that are happening everywhere we look. It's rampant, I find, in our culture these days. And, you know,
absolutely.
coping mechanisms are challenged. Yeah.
Yes. And I was coming back to, I never finished that full definition of how Ayurveda defines health. So it's not just the absence of disease, but it's also contentment of the mind.
Yeah.
Contentment of the mind, peace of mind. That in Ayurveda, when someone tells me that they don't have the peace of mind, but everything else is going okay, that is still your body talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do things about it. How do you come back to that space of contentment? Are you sleeping well? That's another indicator of good health in Ayurveda. Completely linked to everything else. It's related to your gut health. How are you sleeping? Or are you oversleeping? Do you feel all groggy in the morning? Do you need that coffee? Have you become dependent on that coffee to wake you up? Because in Ayurveda, if you're inspired, you've had a good night's sleep, you're balanced, you don't need anything to wake you up. You will just feel lit up when you wake up. You just feel amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So these are signs. The body is giving you signs all the time. It's not a bad sign. If your body is saying, no, I really need the coffee, well, then the deeper questions are, What is happening in your body?
Mhm.
Why are you feeling that way? Did you have a really big meal the night before? Was it a lighter meal? Or are you doing something during the day that is contributing to this fatigue that is happening in the morning?
Mhm.
Or did you have a really restful sleep during the night? Was it a restful sleep or did you keep waking up? Why was that happening? So
Yeah,
these are the
Tash, are you
questions.
listening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see you sitting there and you're like shaking your head because Tashi often says, I don't sleep well. I wake up all the time, you know? And we both have these aura rings and we got the aura rings. Tashi got it first, but so one of the first things I do every single morning because I want to know like how was my night, when I was sleeping, and it can detect when you've had alcohol, when you've had too much stress on your body, when you had a late night meal, like it proposes a potential issues that would have caused you to be not in your full form, let's say.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I have another question. I'm going in another direction as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we're hearing about right now in terms of our diet, especially for women, as making sure that we have the adequate amount of protein
Yeah.
Yeah.
for muscles, right? So, what are your thoughts on that in the Ayurveda tradition?
Yeah, that's a very good question because I get this question a lot. Um, there is so much information out there, first of all, a
Yeah.
lot of information out there, and people are confused because they'll hear one thing and then they'll hear something totally opposite.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you that they're both right.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because it always goes back to personalized constitution. Who are you? So proteins can be very good for someone who's a Vata type, but too much protein for a Kapha type of a person is really going to make them feel even more heavier, right? Now, doesn't mean Kapha types don't need any protein. That's not what I'm saying. There's a lot of nuances to this. It means that they need more easily digestible proteins, perhaps some plant-based proteins
Okay.
that they can absorb and metabolize so that their body doesn't become more heavier by eating
Hmm.
those types of proteins. So yeah, there's many nuances to this. Protein, not a bad thing. Depends who's eating it, depends what age they are at
And
as well.
it depends the source, right? The source of
And the
protein.
source.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Ayurveda is
Okay.
always looking at the source. Thanks for reminding me. We are always looking at the source. Where is it coming from? How was, let's say it's an animal-based protein, how was that animal treated, right? Was it given a
Mm.
lot of antibiotics? Because if it did, guess what? Your gut has to process not only the emotions that that animal had to go through when it was slaughtered, for example, but also all the antibiotics it was fed.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know.
it's too much for the gut. The gut is
Yeah.
like, how do you expect me to metabolize this? This is a lot for me. So
Yeah.
if you are eating animal-based protein, then knowing the source and rather than going with the processed animal protein, go with as fresh as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whole foods.
Okay, I have one last question.
Yes.
I learned that, so we talk about sugar, processed sugar is not good for the body. And in Ayurveda, I've understood that honey is something that's very prominent, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I also learned that honey is not to be mixed with anything warm.
Yeah. That's a
And
good one. Yeah, and that's a lot of people don't realize this. Honey is amazing. It's known as a life force, the ojas. Remember I talked about the ojas and the ama?
yeah,
So honey is a very pure form of sugar because it comes from the bees. Again, it has to be a very good potent honey, not the ones. And
yeah,
as you know, there's some honey
Just
that's,
a little teddy bear there. Yeah.
has to be made
source,
purely
source,
where
go
the
to the
bees were
source.
actually flying out, and not just in some contained space where they were just eating refined sugar. So again, has to be a very good form of honey. So honey, once it's heated, it becomes toxic. It becomes ama. A lot of
For the
people don't
body.
realize that because the honey is um, because it's an ojas, it has to be eaten at room temperature. Because once it goes into your body, it has a heating quality to it. It starts scraping off toxins in your colon as well. Once we heat it, it becomes the opposite. It becomes like a glue and it starts sticking to your colon, which becomes ama. So it's very hard to remove that. And in
So
Ayurveda, we
putting honey in your tea or putting honey in your coffee, thinking that it's a great alternative to sweetening things or cooking with it is not
yes,
the best way.
it's a great, you could use it, but you want to make sure if you are putting it in coffee or in tea, like put your finger in. If it's very hot, that means it's too hot for the honey too. But if your finger can take it, then the honey can take it too.
Okay, and now what about cooking with it? Like when you bake and stuff, alternative, the
Yeah, I would.
alternative to, so it's a hard no.
No. A hard no.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, definitely not. It's going to produce toxins, and that is going to be harder for your gut because you have to remove those toxins. In Ayurveda, this is the only way to remove ama internally is when you're drinking nice warm drinks and also doing a cleanse. Cleanse is the most deepest way to remove toxins from the body. But yeah, I definitely do not recommend cooking with honey.
Okay.
Interesting.
So I think we like I understand much more.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you for that. And I think that it's we probably only just like scratched a little bit
You've
of the
just
Yeah.
scratched.
surface. But I think what the bigger message is that it's it's very you can touch it. It's not something that is difficult. It's not something that is uh, things that we don't already know or that we're not maybe already applying in our lives. We just need to have the guidance, right, on how to understand what our body type is, to understand how to be able to eat, exercise, all the things that we talked about today. But it's fun because you'd offer types of consultations for this, correct? So you
I
really
do.
help people to be able to, you can do it virtually, you can do it in person.
Yeah. Well, yeah, whatever someone's needs are, if they're living far away, then I do it virtually, or I can do it in person at Skin on Bee as well.
Mhm.
Um, so I like to work with a client over a period of time.
Yeah.
I used to have clients that just came in, I just want to know how to fix this in one-time consultation. And then I used to give them a long list of things, and then they were so overwhelmed and, oh,
Yeah.
this is too much. No, they need that guidance. They need the support.
Encouragement.
And it's literally holding their hand and doing it one by one and beginning with the most simplest change for them. And everyone is different. For someone, doing change number one is easier than doing change number two, for example.
Mhm.
So it's working with them and seeing what is feasible with them. Let's begin there. When they feel that difference, that's when they get motivated
Oh
to do
yeah.
something more.
It's very motivating. When you start
Exactly.
to feel better, it's very motivating.
Absolutely. So I
Yeah.
like to work with them over a period of
Yeah.
time to help build that trust in themselves as well, and how little steps make big differences. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to, they don't have to change their whole pantry.
Yeah, no, and we always talk about habit stacking, right? But I think when you're working with someone like yourself, Sonia, what the individual is doing is making a commitment to something.
Yeah.
They're putting their hand out and saying, "Okay, I'm committed, help me."
Yeah.
And then you start and you move through it, and then it becomes, I think, lifestyle, and having slip-ups is something that we all do. But I think once you build in these good habits and you start feeling better and seeing the change in your life, not just on the inside, but on the outside also, even relationships with other people and how you navigate through your life, your job, everything, your
Everything.
family, just your friends, everything. That's when
It impacts.
people say, this is something I want to stick with because this is I'm having a more fulfilled and joyous life in kind of chaotic world that we live in today.
Yeah, and I want to share something else. This is how deep Ayurveda goes. So when you have a very nice balanced gut health, you're able to attract wonderful things to your life.
Mm,
A lot of people don't realize that. This is
hmm.
how powerful your gut is. So in yoga, we talk about the third chakra.
Yeah.
right? So I'm a yoga teacher too, a Kundalini yoga teacher. And yes, most yoga teachers know this inside out. This third chakra is so powerful. If you want to attract things to you, if you want to inspire yourself, or, when you do those sorts of things, you're strengthening your mental capacity as well. But when you strengthen your internal gut health, you start transforming your life.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say. It starts transforming your life, because when the gut becomes balanced, the mind becomes balanced.
It's all connected.
And when the mind is balanced, that's the attraction, right? The positivity that
Yeah.
starts happening. So it's all related.
Yeah.
Because if things are chaotic in your life, usually it's because it's chaotic in the gut as well.
It's really unbelievable. Like I can picture people in my mind that I feel are stuck in this area. And that's why I'm so excited to be able to have this conversation, or we are, Tashi and I, because we love sharing things with our audience that could help them to live a more joyous, healthy life. So I
I
find
love
this has
your
been,
podcast. I
thank
love I
you.
love how many different types of people you bring in, and your goal really is to expose your clients to well-being. No matter
Mhm.
what the technique is, like, try
Yeah.
something and stick with
Just
it.
to have to take interest in yourself. And for me, it comes down to really just loving yourself somehow, to have an interest to try new things. And maybe it's, for us, if it's one podcast that somebody listens to one day while driving in the car somewhere, that they have that aha moment and they say, okay, I'm going to try this, and it has in any way a positive impact on their life, then we are fulfilled by that, because that gives us, it's part of our purpose as
Absolutely.
people, and as also a company that we run. It's all part of it. So this
Oh,
was really fun and exciting. So thank you really, Sonia, very much for joining us
yeah, it
today.
was such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you for inviting me as your
Yeah,
guest.
very interesting conversation. Thank you so much.
You take care. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to rate, review, and follow us on social at Skin Talks Pod. We'll see you next week.